Fantastic, guys. Look, welcome everybody that's out there in the world that's watching or that will watch us. We welcome you to another episode of the Insurance Powerhouse. My name is Oscar Gonzalez. I'm the founder of Scale My Social, a company that helps the insurance industry, agents, agency owners in lead generation systems to help you take control of your own marketing. And today, guys, a super special guest. As always, we try to bring people that bring value, but today something very special, guys. I have a good friend of mine, a brother, family to me, that we also work together, Chad Kiewester. He's been, we'll get into a little bit of the introduction, but we go back years and years. And Chad, what's happening, brother? How you doing, man?
How's it going today, man? Nice to be able to talk to you, Oscar. Hey there, everybody. Nice to meet you guys. Introduce myself.
It's good because, yeah, obviously, we talk every day. We're always talking, so this isn't like something new. And we talk business, we talk everything, just because we're obviously we're good buddies outside of just work, man. And it's great to have you here. I thought it would be a great idea to bring you onto this and have us talk a little bit, because you right now speak to, man, 70, 80, maybe 100 people, plus the people that are under you now that we're starting to build a team. So you have a real ear to the ground to what agents are going through, the struggles that they're having. And so I thought it'd be great to have you on. We'll talk a little bit about those things. We'll talk a little bit about how you and I got together. And I think if you're out there watching, here are the things that we're going to cover today, right? The real struggles as new agents coming into the business face, right? What are the two or three really main things that you got to look out for and that you need to set up in your mind and know how you're going to tackle these things, because they're going to be challenges that you have. So if that's something that's interesting to you, let's get this thing going. Let's get it rolling, guys. Welcome. Here we go. Awesome. Okay, so we did the intro. We're here. So I'll give a little background on you, man, and then of course I'll let you kind of intro yourself. So you and I met year 25, 23, somewhere in the 20 plus range at this point, right? 20 something years. And we met in the mortgage industry. We were both selling mortgages. I was in my young 20s. I had gotten out of my trials and tribulations from being a young teenager and a mess out there in the world, and we sat next to each other where we met, right? And man, I think we both instantly looked at each other. You heard me pitch, I heard you pitch, and it was like, holy shit, man, this guy, we really sound similar, and then from there we just connected, became buddies, man. But that's how you and I met in the mortgage industry 20 plus years ago. We're talking before 2008, before the massive real estate crash leading up to that. And so, Chad, give us an intro of yourself, a little bit of what happens, because your journey, man, is incredible, right? Like, you've gone to extremes, right? Again, we met in a banking scenario, sales scenario, and from there, the steps that happened, as you went on your journey, and now we're back here. Recap that for people, man, because I think it's an incredible story of perseverance, of challenges, and what it takes to really get to where somebody wants to get to, man. So let them know who you are and how that all took place.
Absolutely. Thanks, Oscar, man. I appreciate it. And we do speak every day. And I think it's been 21 years we met. And you're right, man. We hit it off literally instantly. It was a lot of the same kind of values and in line and how we do really how ultimately at the time it was how we do business, but now it's how we kind of do life together. But I appreciate you saying that. And, it has been a kind of a crazy road for me. I think that some people have a lot of kind of hurdles and obstacles in life. Some of them are in our control, some of them are out of our control. I had always been successful in business. We did really well in banking together, as you know. And then I think that some of my personal life challenges made me change. I had to make some changes in my life. I went through a divorce. I lost my brother within about a 6 month period, and I actually had left banking and moved out to Hawaii to kind of reset. And as you know, I've always been a fisherman. I'm an outdoor guy, and my dream had always has been, it was crazy, but I had a dream to become a professional fisherman. So I had left the corporate world, this master's, all this education, and I wanted to become a fisherman. I wasn't very good at it, but I loved it, right? And so I just kind of went all in and started to become a fisherman out in Hawaii, fishing with the best sport fishermen in the world, became a professional, got my captain's license, and started to run charters and had people paying me to go fishing. And it was incredible, right? And so I still had that business part from my education and experience. So when I was in Hawaii, I decided to move to Panama, where ultimately where my dad was from and where I have family and there's really good fishing. So I moved from Kona, Hawaii to Panama, and I decided
And
to
by the
open up.
way,
Go ahead.
and by the way, like your journey in Hawaii, right? Because I remember when this happened, right? When you all of a sudden your brother, the tragic passing of your brother, the divorce that you went through, and then man, you were in Hawaii, right? All of a sudden it's like, man, I'm moving to Hawaii. I'm selling everything I have. I need a reset. I need a change in my life. And I remember at the time thinking like, man, this guy's going to do it. You know, he's going to really he's really going to do this. He's going to go pursue his dream.
Yeah.
And you did it, right? And the next month you were there and you sold everything, right? You were starting from scratch and
I
on an
moved to
island.
Hawaii. I moved to Hawaii with 7 suitcases, right? And it was probably 4 suitcases too many. And I had been in Hawaii about 2 months, and I was really miserable. I was really bad off. I had, my brother had just been killed in an accident training for a
Yeah.
triathlon, and I'd gone through this divorce. And I was literally on the beach one night, and I was listening to all this live music, and I was watching all these couples and everybody happy on the beach. I mean, I was in Hawaii. And I was
Yeah.
looking there was a full, I'll still remember, it was a Wednesday night. I was looking at a full moon and these palm trees. And I remember being like, you know what? I'm in paradise and I am miserable. And
Yeah.
it is Paradise's fault. It's my fault. It's me. I'm the one who needs to make a change, right? I have to do something. And so that's literally where I decided, like the next morning, I don't know how to, I didn't know how to fish. I didn't know how to do it, but I woke up really early and I went to the dock. And I just did that for literally 10 days. And on the 10th day, there was a boat captain there that his mate didn't show up. And he says, I've been seeing you here at the dock. Do you want to go fishing this morning? My mate didn't show up. And I said, I don't know how to fish.
Man.
He goes, come on, I'll teach you. And that was the moment. And for the next 3 years, I fished for 330 days a year. I was fishing every day. I was single. I didn't have anybody that cared where I was. And so I was just fishing. And so
Well,
that's
you were fishing, by the way, just so people understand, like you weren't just going on a little boat out and like you ended up fishing with world renowned
yeah,
boat captains and you guys were out there doing it, man. You guys, I remember some of these
winning
pictures that you guys
tournaments
were
on
sending.
TV
Yeah,
shows.
when you got it, man. Yeah. And so it's important, right? And that's a really cool fact there, right? Like that persistence, right? Which relates to some of the stuff that we'll talk about right now for the insurance business and just in business in general, right? Like you had to do the process. You had to sit there and cold call, right? You had to go
I
out there
did.
for 10 days in a row and hopefully try to find an opportunity. And when you found that opportunity, man, you took it
I
and then
even went
everything just
free.
happened.
I would even go for free. I would just
Right.
ask people, can I just go? I don't want to do anything. I just want to watch and try to learn. And you know what I found out? I found out that people were very willing to help. You just had to ask. Just had to ask, hey man,
Incredible.
can I go? I don't know how to do this, but I'm open to learn. And there are
Incredible.
people that are willing to help you if you really try. They'll see it. They'll see that.
And the journey's interesting, right? Because now 3 years go by. You fish for 90% of the year every single day for 3 years, and now you say, okay, I can go make my dream come true. And you choose Panama, which is essentially where your family on your father's side is all from. And you decide that you're going to go build a fishing charter business in Panama, and you were going to do it with your father, if I recall at the time,
Yeah.
right? And so
Mhm.
now take us through that. Now you go to Panama and you start that process. What happens then?
Okay. So I get to Panama in 2015, and at the time, my family's all from Panama. My grandparents have always been in agriculture. My grandfather was one of the largest eight largest farmers in the country with cattle and bananas and the whole deal. And I grew up coming to Panama since the 70s, and I didn't really speak a whole lot of Spanish. As you know, I spoke very little Spanish, just enough to kind of get by with the family, but nothing too specific. But when I was fishing in Hawaii, I was learning from all these great captains, and I was seeing their businesses, and I was taking my business sense, and I thought I could really open up a business in Panama. And you don't know what you don't know. And I was really wet behind the ears, and I'm an ambitious person. I've always hit my goals, right? I've always been a person that if I try, that I'm going to do it over time. That's just kind of who I am. And so when I started this business, it was difficult. It was difficult. I didn't speak the language. I was learning a new culture. I was still on my own by myself, more or less. And I come down to Panama, and I buy this boat, and if any boat owner knows, they're hard. They like to break down. And it did. It broke down for the first 9 months I owned it. But we did get the boat running. And the year that we started in 2016, there was only one tournament in the country of Panama that year. And it was a 3-day tournament, and we won all 3 days, and we ended up winning the tournament our first year. Man. Right. And so we came out with a lot of momentum. And, as you know, I'm not a tech guy at all. I'm the fisherman. And I needed to create a website, and I didn't have the money to do it. So I created the website myself, and I actually had somebody go to the website and book a charter. And I went and I ran my charter. And this was a Sunday. And my very first charter, we caught an 800-pound black marlin, the very first charter out. It was amazing. It was the biggest fish I'd ever caught. And unfortunately, the fish died, and we had to bring it back with us. And, the next day, I have my truck loaded up with coolers to go take all this meat to my dad up at the farm. And I'm talking to my dad, and I give him all the fish. And he says, "Good job, son. I'm proud of you. You did it. You moved from Hawaii. You created a business. You did it." And unfortunately, the very next day, my dad had a heart attack and passed away right in front of my farm. And so, man. Life happened. And actually, that was the last day that I was fishing. I stopped fishing. And I became a landowner. Now I'm a farmer all of a sudden in Panama. I didn't really still speak Spanish. And so life changed and happened to me real fast, right?
Quickly. And you had to basically, not by option, because you were on a path to continue your fishing and the business, but all of a sudden you had a massive piece of land with cattle and people working on it, and you had to step up and take over what your father had kind of built there, and like you said, really become a farmer, right? You had to really that's what you did.
Yeah, and this happens to people. I talk to agents every week that things happen to them, and I really do get it, right? As a person who's been successful in business and had some failure in business and been successful in personal life and had failure in personal life, I really do understand it. The day my dad died, I had 300 head of cattle on this farm, and I had like 20 horses, and I didn't speak Spanish and had all these indigenous Panamanian workers. That was a Wednesday, and on Thursday, all of those workers quit. Like, my dad wasn't even buried yet. And I'm on this farm, standing on this farm by myself, literally by myself, and was in real shock. And it was a real an eye open. I was 40 years old. I thought I was a man at that point, but life had really taught me. And I didn't know anything about farming. I didn't really know anything about farming. And it took me a couple months. I was in shock. And so I didn't know where to start. So I started looking at the books, right? I started going back to like what I knew, which was the books, right? The accounting and all that. And I started to see that the lawyers are robbing us, and the accountants are robbing us. And and there's even people stealing cattle. And so, at the time I was a single guy, and I told my mom, I was like, I have to stop fishing. We have a major investment with this farm. It's a large farm. And we have this is a business that's been around since the 70s. And I'm not one to, I don't want you stealing from me. I'm not okay with that. And, and I didn't know anything about farming, but ultimately we had this little cement house in the middle of the jungle on the border of Panama and Costa Rica. No water, no cable, no electricity, none of that stuff. And, I had to go back and go to my roots about me being the outdoor guy and kind of okay with that. And I literally moved to the farm, and I picked up the shovel, and I learned how to dig holes. I learned how to do fencing. I learned how to do everything in cattle. And I've made so many failures and lost so much money making bad decisions. I didn't know how to make a decision because I had nothing to base it off of. I was completely inexperienced. Every person I went to talk to led me in the wrong direction, or was trying to take advantage of me or steal from me because I didn't speak very good Spanish. And for the first time in my life, I had to go all in, and I had to protect what I had. It was the only thing I had. I did inherit a nice piece of land. I didn't inherit any money, and I didn't speak the language, and I had to learn how to speak Spanish. I had to learn how to work with workers. I had to learn the farm. I had to learn cattle. And lo and behold, 4, 5, 6 years later, in the middle of COVID, when nobody could leave, I was there on the farm working every single day with the workers, establishing a reputation in the business and changing everything around, and just being who I am as a person. Created a business, was able to, as you know, about 2 years ago, I was able to kind of start stepping out of that farm because I had established a system there where it was generating and paying for itself, where I was able to kind of get back and circle back to you, and ultimately get to what you have going on. And we now circle back with all these years of experience.
Man, it's so crazy because again, and I'm gonna move here, guys. I'm in Colombia in a coffee farm, right? And so the internet is spotty, right? But as you can see behind me, I mean, it's really an incredible spot that we're in. But the internet isn't great. So I'm going to move here a little bit closer to where I think the Wi-Fi is. I think we'll do better here. But here's really something that's incredible to me, right? Because I recall all of this, right? I recall the conversations that you and I had that were basically like, man, I got thousands of pieces of cattle, and I gotta slaughter these things, and I gotta bring them to the market to sell them. And to me, it was an incredible thing. And I remember I would get off the call with you, and I would talk to my wife or buddies and be like, man, this guy Chad is in Panama in the middle of nowhere, and with thousands of heads of cattle, and trying to figure out how to manage and run. And of course, like, your father had this farm because he loved Panama and he loved where he was. He didn't necessarily have things in place to properly manage and to set up. He didn't have any of those things, right? It was just like he bought this piece of land and he was doing it because of the love for it. But here you come, and it's like, well, now we got to figure out what I'm going to do with this farm. And ultimately the idea for you was, I want to sell it, right? And try to get something out of this. And that's what you did. I remember you going through that entire process and being able to get to a place where you, like you said, you built a system, and now was kind of running somewhat of it on its own. And I remember when you came to me and said, hey, I need to start working. I need to get back to like what I was doing and the things that I'm really good at. And of course, for me, right, I knew how much stuff you've gone through, but I never forgot that for me, it was like, man, the way that you sell, the way that you are able to communicate with people, and which is how we got together right now, going back to the mortgage business days. And you and I started a mortgage, a company with some investors, and we had a team of, 30, 40 loan officers at one point. And so I knew that you at heart, you knew business, you knew how to do these things. And so when you came and you said, hey man, I really need, what can I do for you? Where can I fit into this business that at the time I had just started? You know, I had just now, I'm in insurance. Now I'm transitioning into the scale my social business. And you started little by little, right? It wasn't something that you said, hey, I can't put in all the hours because I still am running and trying to figure this thing out. But little by little, you came in and you took on a huge role in the company, because I was at the point where I was doing everything, right? I was doing sales. I was you doing onboarding. I was doing, the video. I was doing everything, and I was at a point where I started to need people. I needed people to start coming in and really helping the business. And so you came in at a very, very interesting point, right? Where it was like, well, look, man, I have the sales department that's available for you, like this is a huge opportunity. Like, and you like everything that I've ever seen you do. You grabbed this thing by the horns. You didn't know anything about what I was doing, right? There's a lot of things that you didn't understand, but you did it, right? And you went through it and you figured it out. And like everything else that you've done and I've ever done, we failed, we stumbled a few times, we fell flat on our face, we got back up, and now fast forward, right? Now we're at a place where you are the sales director in the business. You have people working under you. You're speaking to 70 to 100 insurance agents per day, per week. And now, like, the conversations that I hear you have with agency owners, I sit back and I go, man, look at this guy. You know what I mean? Like, he knows more about insurance than most people out there when they're coming into this business. And you've been such a critical part in obviously helping grow the business, but also teaching agents, because that's something that I think we both can provide to clients and people that are coming in. Like, yes, we're good at running ads, we're good at lead generation, we're good at marketing, but the one thing that we have that a lot of other places don't is we've built successful businesses over time. We know what it's like to really fail and start something from scratch and have to make it work because our backs are against the wall, right? Because our families depend on it,
You
because
got
we don't have another solution, And so that knowledge, that when I hear you talk to agents, I think that's one of the pieces that agents go, man, you guys, man, thank you. Thank you for these conversations. Thank you for explaining to me, not just about marketing and like generating a lead, but the things that I need to look at and keep an eye out for as I start this new business for myself. And I think that's a very big piece on why we are where we are now, and why we're able to help people to the tune. So that's something that I do want to talk about, right? Because I think it's so important, outside of, again, just the process, right? The lead generation, the
If I
marketing.
may, if I may. So
Yeah,
like a lot of any type of sales and in life, it's going to be the work part and there's going to be the mental part. That's us, right? And so it's whatever you
yeah,
do, no matter what that is. I think that a lot of my calls, some of my calls are strictly about marketing. The people know the business, they have the
right.
experience, they know what it's like, right? The people like us are out there. There's other people that don't have a lot of experience in the business part, and they've never had anybody explain it, right? We never had anybody explain it to us. You just have to learn it, right, and go through it. And I think that's where we've been able to help a lot of people with, with those experiences. We started doing telesales back in before 05, 03, right? And so the longevity is there, like a couple of decades of doing that. And now when I go back and think about like just me and my personal life, like, and what I've done as far as I was in corporate America, what I kind of went to school for and thought I was always going to do. And then I decided to chase a dream and figure out what the sacrifices are involved in to do that and to actually do it, right? To actually do it. And then to get the rug pulled out from underneath and then having to switch gears immediately and stop doing something that you love, that you really wanted to do, and then have to do
Yeah.
something else, and then figuring out what that's going to take, and not knowing how to do anything. Ultimately, people have to make a decision. You have to make a decision on how important it is and what you want to do and what you have to do, you know? And so I
Yeah.
think that a lot of these calls, it's more about business. I think that people need to hear about how business gets done and the connections of what they need to do to be successful before you can start talking about marketing, right? Because you can talk about the marketing part, but if they're not ready business-wise, going to know what it's really going to take to be successful, then you can't do it. And so many agents, I don't think, do those things. There's a couple, 2 or 3 steps, as as you talk about, that you need to figure out on if this is for you or not, or how to become successful, I think.
Well, and man, and that's like, I think, to give viewers, right, a real, like, okay, well, what is that? What are those things, right? And here's, for me, right, I think number one thing that I see agents and we talk about a lot, right, is the idea that everything has to be set up perfectly for you to start, right? That an agent comes into the business, and a lot of it, guys, what happens is, you've never ran a business, you've never started a business. Many people that come into insurance come from 9 to 5 corporate gigs where it's a job, right? You clock in, you clock out, and things are already set up and laid out for you. And so when some folks come into starting a business, they focus so much on making sure that every single detail is perfect before I pick up a phone and actually make a call and try to generate business, right? And that's just not how business works, right? When you look at successful people out there, and there's, the story is out there over and over again. But if I take myself, and you probably are the same, like, I've never been in a business that I started that became successful where I had everything figured out before I actually picked up a phone or sold whatever I was selling, right? It was like, man, I'm just going to get started, and there's going to be a lot of dust that I'm going to kick up in the first 3 months, 6 months. I'm going to learn, I'm going to fail. But until you start, there's never going to be a situation, guys, where things are going to be perfect, right? You just have to go. You got to start. You can't overthink it, because the money that you generate in a business is not in all these details and setting up perfection. The money comes in when you pick up the phone, or when you start selling your product or service, in this case insurance, and you figure it out, right? But if you're not even starting, because you got to make sure that you have a perfect CRM and a perfect automation and a perfect lead and a perfect IMO and a perfect training system and the perfect pitch, guys, you'll never start. And likely with that mentality, you'll fail. What would you say? Would you say that's pretty accurate, Chad?
Absolutely. There is no such thing as perfection. Is something that's moving, because we're getting better. We're supposedly getting better every day if we're putting forth the effort, right? If we're really putting forth the effort every day, then perfection is going to be changing. So as you mess up, then you learn from that mistake, but you have to go, right? You have to make decisions based. I say this every day. You have to
Yeah.
make decisions based on the information you have at the time. It's not a hindsight is 2020 thing. You have to make a decision, and you have to move. And and we win and we lose, and of course we've learned far more for the losses than we do the wins. Like, we have to do that. I think so many people are scared, and just like you said, I think the videos are great. I love that we're doing this right now. They're informative. I think it's great to talk to people. At the end of the day, you have to take action. You have to do it. You have to actually go forward. And I say this every day. What do I have to do to start selling? Well, here's what you have to do to start selling. Here's what you need. You need to have a way to call people, right? You need to have someone to sell. If, and lo and behold, you get someone to sell it, you get someone to say yes, you need somewhere to take them. That's all you need. You don't need anything else. You don't need all the bells and whistles. It's great to have those, obviously, as you go and strive for perfection, but you don't have to have that in the beginning. And people make the excuse that they need all that stuff before they want to take action. And they don't put time frames.
Well,
There's never any time frames.
And that lead us into that second thing, right? Which is, and you and I talk about this a lot, right? Because when you talk to agents and then we reconvene and you're like, man, here's something that I really see agents struggling with, right? And that's that when they do start, right? Now you take that leap and you say, all right, I'm going to start dialing, I'm going to start calling and trying to generate business. Now, one of the things that you find, right, is that people have no understanding or goals or ideas of now what are you trying to reach, right? So example, right? I come into this business, I say, okay, I want to generate 15,000 a month in annual premiums or 20,000, whatever your goal is. And that's it, right? Then it's like, all right, then let me go buy leads and let me go do this. But how are you going to get there? And I think that you need to have an understanding of
Yeah.
one, what does it take to write $20,000, right? Specifically, right? Like, how many people
Specifically,
do I
daily,
need to talk
what's it look
to?
like?
Right. You got it. What does that actually look like, right? How many people do I need to talk to? Okay, X amount of people. And on those X amount of people, so how many leads do I need to have to talk to X amount of people, right? To do the
And is
presentations.
what I'm currently doing, or my plan on what to do, is it even attainable to hit the goal? Because in most cases, the plan or what they're doing can't even hit the goal. It's impossible. It's impossible to do it. And
Well,
but
and
people
we
aren't breaking
achieved
it down.
this. Yeah, well, and it's like you say this to me, right? Because we'll get on a call and you'll say, "Man, I just talked to this person that I asked them what their goal was and they want to write 30, 40,000 a month." And then I ask them the follow-up question, which is, "Okay, well, how much are you spending on marketing to get to that 20 or 30,000 a month?" And they'll answer with, "Well, I'm spending 300 bucks a week right now on
350 bucks.
leads." Yeah, and it's like
And
it's
are you making, what are you making now? Well, I'm making 3,000. We have to be
right,
realistic. We're not being realistic. I think that many people, in my experience, they don't, if they say they want to make 10, 12,000, whatever, I think the insurance business wants to sell people this dream of 20 and 30,000. And there's a lot of people doing it. And we help a lot of people do that. We see it every day, every month. We see those agents, we're
right.
working with them. But there's a lot of people that don't know how to make 5 grand a month or 10 grand a month. Right. And so I want to talk to those people and I want to say, look, let's do it. You take your number, 5, 10 grand, you take your average commission, and you divide that. When you get that, you're going to get a number. You're going to get 5, 7, 10, 12, whatever it is, the deals. And then you have to divide
Hmm.
that by 20 days, by the days of the month. And then you're going to see how many deals you need per day to hit your goal. And then you
You
have to
got it.
ask yourself, how many people do I need to speak to each day, not
Right,
call, but speak
right.
to pitch to get one deal? And from there, we figure out our numbers on how to be able to hit our goals and how to run our business, right? And people don't do it. Nobody does it. The new
Man,
agents don't do it. The seasoned agents don't do it. It's interesting to see people just spending money, frustrated about their results, doing it every single month. And that's just what they do. And it's frustrating. It is, because we
it's
speak to people
frustrating. Yeah.
today and then they'll follow back up in 3 and 6 months and they're in the same position. And I think about all the things I've been through, and I think about the sacrifices I made to get out of the position I was in. And I want people to do better. And we have all this experience to help people do that. And it's not just a lead, it's not just marketing. We have all this other experience that now we've been able to help this network of top producers, that people are in line with us. They're in line with the mentality of how you get out of bed in the morning. And there's
You
more
got
to,
it.
there's marketing is huge. But the business, to know what you have to do on the inside to do it and stop listening to everybody else, and nobody else is ultimately going to help you. Nobody's going to help you make money. You have to do that on your own. And how to do that? I can't do that for you. I can help you get
Right.
in line and create a system, but ultimately you have to sit in the chair and make the calls and do the work, right?
Man, I think it's so key. And again, guys, that means tracking, right? Like track how many people are you talking to a day? How many presentations did you actually do on the people that you spoke to? And guys, the people that say no to you, you should track that. And at the end of your day, go listen to that call and figure out where you lost that sale and hold yourself accountable for that, for the activity that you do, and I promise that things will start turning around. So, man, I think we
One
ended.
second.
Go
And
ahead.
that
Yeah.
one last thing. In that no, good. Good. You got to know. Move them off. Forget about it. Move on to the next one. We have to take no's. We have to get no's. This is sales. If we don't
Well,
get
and
no's,
you
we
and I
won't
have
do anything.
always, you got it. You and I have always said from day one, this is something that you and I have always shared this idea of like, man, if an agent comes to us or a salesperson says, man, I'm getting a bunch of no's, man, if you're not getting no's, if people aren't saying no to you, then you're not talking to enough people, right? You're just not doing the activity because it doesn't work like that, right? It's not all yeses. You have to get through the no's to get through the yeses. Man, this is incredible. We're gonna leave it here. You and I are gonna start doing more of these conversations and giving people more value about the business, about what we do. But I appreciate you so much taking a few minutes here to spend
Okay,
with
man.
us and to share some of your insights and your story, man. I'm super grateful to have you not just as a business partner, as someone that's helping us, but also as a friend and obviously family, man. So I appreciate you guys. Everybody out there, if this brought some value to you, drop a like, drop a share, and tune in. We're gonna keep doing this stuff, and I appreciate everybody out there. Follow us on social media at Scale My Social. My name is Oscar Gonzalez. Chad Kiewester, everybody. Thank you so much, guys.
Take it easy. See you guys.